announced last week that I was taking a 15% pay cut on my salary as a legislator. And I'll tell you, part of the reason in doing that, everybody's talking about a pay raise, but folks don't realize that was a pay raise my predecessor gave to himself back in 2007. It wasn't a pay raise to me, and I understand that in these difficult times that folks are making sacrifices, and I wanted to show the people in my district, many of whom are state employees and state workers, that I'm going to take just as much of a sacrifice as they are, and want them to know that somebody is feeling their pain too. 15% is the amount that I took. I cut my salary. It's tantamount to the proration of the general fund. We've got a lot of state workers in this district. I think the only person in the State House with more state workers in this district is Jay Love. So I decided to take that as a way to show the people in my district that I understand what they're going through, and that even though I can't protect them from some of the cuts that are coming because we're few in number, I can at least share in that pain. I'll be honest with you, I don't think anybody here in this body expected the dynamics to be just what they are. In fact, I've talked to some other freshmen, colleagues across the aisle, and they've told me, shoot, I didn't even expect to be elected. I turned a Republican seat that had been Republican for almost 30 years, Democrat. I was talking to a colleague who had turned a Democratic seat that hadn't been Republican since Reconstruction. She turned it Republican. And I just making conversation with her. I said, well, what made you decide to get in the race after it had been Democrat so long? She says, oh, I've run for this 3-4 times already, and this is just the first time I won. And I said, well, that's interesting. I said, tell me, what'd you do different this go round? And she looked at me. She says, well, 2 things really. She said, first, I didn't spend any money. I said, really? That's interesting. I said, what's the other one? She says, well, I never left my house. And so I said, well, that makes sense. But all that's to say that there are a lot of folks up here in a position they didn't expect to be in. But you can't let that slow you down. At the end of the day, as much as some folks want to put a partisan spin on some of these issues, these are at their core people issues. Retirement, for example. If you're a state worker and you put your time in and you invest your hard-earned dollars in your retirement, you expect it to be there. You don't expect somebody coming back at the end of your retirement and saying, oh, and by the way, we're going to charge you more for that than we originally promised you. So at the end of the day, these issues, they're not Democrat or Republican issues, and what I work on every day is finding a way to build consensus with my colleagues across the aisle, build bridges, not burn them. And I think once some of my colleagues finish sowing their oats, we'll say, I think we'll be able to get past the November elections and start really rolling up our sleeves and working on some of these people issues together. That's my hope. Well, you got to prioritize. Look, we got 2 groups in this state that are most vulnerable. We've got our children, and we've got our elderly. And the last thing we need to be doing is balancing budgets on the backs of either one of those groups, because they can't speak for themselves. They're not they're not able to fight for themselves. So I was sent here to fight for those folks, and I was also sent here to fight for the state workers in my district. And for too long, really since 2003, we've been tightening things up in the budgets on state workers, and I keep hearing, they gotta make some sacrifices. Well, I say, we should all be making some sacrifices. State workers have been sacrificing since 2003. It's the old saying, give till it hurts and then give some more. And I think, some of my colleagues want that to be the case. But it just does not sit well with me that we are going to let some of these big out-of-state corporations off the hook, and we're going to ask the hard-working people in our own districts to give till they can't give anymore. It's like getting blood out of a turnip. At some point, we got to recognize that we've got to start looking elsewhere. And my hope is, and I've heard it from some of my colleagues, that they're going to join us in looking to close some of these loopholes on some of these big out-of-state corporations. And I mentioned bipartisanship and bridging gaps. I hope that's one way we can bridge a budget gap, but bridge it together not in a partisan way, but in a practical way.
Do you foresee any cuts to the grocery tax?
That's something we have fought for years. And I can't, I've got a great deal of respect for Representative Knight for fighting for that. I've joined him in that commitment to see that repealed. I'm not sure that this year is going to be the year that we can get that done, just judging from the temperature there in the State House. That doesn't mean we'll stop the fight. It just means that, I'm not optimistic about having the political will to make that happen this go-round.